Hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Sales Syndicate Podcast. We're switching back to the topic of sales triggers this week for another short and sweet episode. So I'm joined by Nic Biffen again, who's managed to carve out some time, albeit you might hear the dog in the background. So apologies if you do hear some snuffling or anything like that. But this week we're going to be talking about new product development sales trigger leads. So Biff, do you want to just kick things off by giving a top level overview of new product developments before we dive in?
The door stop, but let's just keep them quiet for a little bit. So new product developments, great example or opportunity for reach out. There's obviously development going on. There's potential expansion, the excitement of a new product or line of product that the company is looking into. So there's a lot of things that can then come off the back of that, but it's obviously a great indicator in terms of company growth, potentially some risk as well of the unknown, but there's a good opportunity across multiple different channels in terms of that initial outreach and where you can start to position your services to often take them through the challenges that perhaps you've seen across many of your other clients.
Cool. And I think there's quite a few subtypes or sort of sales trigger categories that we're going to run through within the new product development sort of umbrella. And we'll try and go through them in a logical way of, if you were a business thinking about a new product development, that a logical journey or chronological journey of that process. So I guess stage one of that process would be a planned upgrade or a planned new feature. Now, what sort of indication is this going to give sales reps?
Typically, think backwards a little bit. The customer or client, they've obviously already released this product within the market. They've obviously found, perhaps actually it might be the other way in terms of product fit. It may be actually they've launched the product, they've cemented that within, but now they're starting to understand or find, a clear need across their customer base that actually, new improvements, perhaps enhancements of that are needed in order to retain those clients. That might be the one way of looking at it. Or again, on the flip reversal, they may have launched one product and actually nobody's actually buying that. So, how can they diversify or upgrade that in order to make that market fit? But ultimately, it's a good conversation starter with that. Obviously depending on how you provide that outreach, but there's probably a key need somewhere. Obviously, if it's in the latter that I mentioned and things haven't gone so well first time around, are there other challenges and things that perhaps your services can help support within that process of, is it a new go-to-market strategy, for example? Is it something that you can enhance within that process? But also it might be from the flip side as well, where you're thinking around more, perhaps security, like infrastructure, anything within those kinds of realms where they've launched their initial product, but now looking to add in upgrades, perhaps further features. You think around the complexities of adding in payment software or the ability to take payments within a product. Does that provide different or more complex issues within inside that organization that, again, you can start to plug into? So there's many different realms of what you can really start to think of within that space, but there could be multiple different opportunities, obviously, depending on the service that you're offering.
And then sort of, I guess, very closely related, but once that planned upgrade or new feature is ready, obviously it's ready for market completion. So you've sort of flipped over to a slightly different need in that they're going to be thinking about go to market. They're going to be thinking about new channels, avenues.
Exactly
of sales,
that,
right?
And again, it may be a separate product or new product that they're launching for a specific region, whatever that may be, but everything that then follows in terms of from the strategy side, if you're more of like a consulting services kind of background, how are they doing that? How are they approaching it? Are there other areas perhaps they haven't thought of, tax in different countries, etc.? but purely it might actually be, how are they, marketing agency, how are you marketing this on top of a product that you've already proven within the market? What additional benefits is that going to bring? You really got to kind of think outside the box a little bit in terms of, how your services might be needed within. It could even be within, subsectional departments in that client, where, different implications may occur.
Okay, then. So you sort of touched on understanding, I guess, a business's, the areas that they're investing in. So, perhaps more of a chunky opportunity, let's say. So instead of a planned upgrade or new feature, if they're thinking about a brand new product, so an all new, brand new product is in development, talk us through that in terms of a triggering event.
It's a great one. I've been there myself personally, actually, from an idea and taking something, straight from that to market. Dependent on what the size of the business is and, how many individuals there are within that or specialists to help drive it. Have they got other consulting services in there to help them with all the other implications? But there will be a million and one things that they don't perhaps think about or haven't considered, that potentially with your services you've helped similar organizations achieve in previous times. So the idea that something is going to happen or they are developing something, there's probably a need again in some capacity for what you can offer within that space, because the complexities of that, especially if it's a brand new or perhaps out of the realms of their traditional swimming lanes as such, there's going to be a lot that perhaps they haven't thought of, or that your services can add into that process or ultimately speed it up. The biggest killer of money is time, and actually the complexity and cost of developing a new product, planning the go-to-market strategy, actually delivering and executing on that is vast. So the ability where perhaps you can come in and speed up that process as well will probably be a huge cost saving to them if it's done alone.
The natural sort of follow on from that is a completed product, and I guess that's very, very similar to the completed upgrade or new feature. So I wouldn't say there's that much differentiation between those two in terms of how a rep or how a account manager is going to handle those two.
I think like completed
events.
Feature, things around that side of it, dependent in terms of where that product's at, you would probably hope that these things have been planned, they've been executed, they've got a strategy in place in terms of what follows next. So that's probably more of a longer game, I would say, in that format, and somewhere where actually fantastic, if you've got a genuine interest, it's a great into that company for perhaps a longer term opportunity that might deliver. Whereas if we're looking at they've just released a new product instead of a feature, my guess with that is, why is it that they're releasing that product? Is it, to perhaps fit that market fit within another region, another country? Is it that their, product first time around didn't quite hit the mark or didn't quite hit expectations? That's probably more of an opportunity of, an immediate offering in terms of, again, where can your services fit into that process? If it's within a new country, for example, how are they actually planning on doing that? Have they got staffing there? Are they trying to manage that from a different service point or a different office? Or, ultimately, is it something that if it's in a different country, have they got staff that can speak the local language, etc.? There's probably a lot more to think of in that instance.
Now, this sort of next part does link well, or is very close to one of the triggers we've already talked about, which is expansion plans. Because naturally, if you're developing a new product or you're planning for an upgrade or a feature, chances are you're going to potentially need a new office, a new factory, a new R&D tech hub, whatever it might be. So I think good example of that will be Tesla when they say, right, I think they call it their gigafactories, don't they? So we're expanding into this region. We want to increase capacity over there. We're going to build a new gigafactory in Berlin or whatever it is. So let's talk through the expansion sort of side of
and
things.
Again, this will probably be the first indicator. Really, is okay, expansion planned. Okay, great. But what's the reason for that? Is that because it's easier access to perhaps materials that they need in terms of that production? Is it perhaps actually, okay, they've managed the market that they're currently in, I say managed or launched successfully, and they want to start expanding their geographical focus, so obviously open up the market size that they're going after. That could be a good opportunity. Or is it actually perhaps where they initially launched wasn't quite right, but they've felt it out, and actually within a different region or so forth, that's where they want to go to. So there's a lot of different things in terms of what that may lead to, but it would be more of a discovery or an input. So okay, what's the real understanding behind that, or the reasons why, and ultimately what you can then offer in terms of that transition. Those would be the big questions that I'd be asking initially. Cool.
So, like we said, it was a pretty quick run through of that particular trigger event. It links, like I said, to the expansion plans, new office development. So, hopefully, that's giving you a slightly sort of a bit better picture of new product developments, but plenty of opportunities to reach out to support that growth, those expansions, those go-to-market strategies. So fingers crossed that's giving you something to go off, potentially something to look out for in your sort of outbound activity. Now, just quickly to finish off, if we were going to suggest some channels for monitoring these sorts of events, once the dog is stopped playing, but if we were going to suggest some channels or some I guess tools which you could use to track those sorts of things, what are we talking? Company press releases,
exactly that. It probably depends on the size of the business and organization as well. But they will be very vocal about it typically, certainly around new products, more so than others. It's they're going to need to advertise, they're going to have that go-to-market strategy in place. So anywhere across like websites, blogs, certainly, how are they finding that development? How are they getting on? Any challenges? They'll probably be writing around this kind of stuff. But also you could look across, obviously your major publications and so forth as well. But typically I'd say probably blogs is your best place to start. But that does obviously rely on you, having a good understanding of who those clients are in terms of, watching them from an early stage.
Brilliant. Okay, then that's like I said, a nice quick one. Join us on the next episode of this particular sales trigger focus, where we're going to be talking about key person changes, which seems to be a fashionable one, I say in inverted commas at the minute, and I guess one that we've actually done a bit of development internally on recently. So that'll be a good one to talk through. So make sure you tune in for the next episode where we talk about key person changes.